Okay. There's a slight delay because I did not. I don't know if it just didn't save the settings from the last time I went live, which granted was not last week, so I don't remember. But it didn't save my settings, so I've been trying to fuck with my lights for like 10 minutes, trying to figure out why my fucking face is like the color like beetroot red. And I was like, my lights have never done this before. I don't understand. It's because I had some dumbass filter on and it didn't switch to the filter. So then I was literally trying to get lights to work. I'm like using color theory over here. I'm like, okay, what if we make this light this color? And I'm like trying to figure out why my face is fucking red as hell. And yeah, it was a filter. So that took me a while to figure out, but we figured it out now, and we're a little late, but it's okay. Also, I got a cool new cup. Thank you, Swiftblood, for the goodies. I got a bunch of goodies. And it's hot on the bottom. I should not have said it on that. Don't set it on that. Okay. I know. That's a really cool cup. Also, I got a bunch of coffee, because of course I did. So thank you very much, Swiftblood. I got more Starbucks. Thanks, Swiftblood. Hi, how you doing? I got Death Wish, Blueberry Vanilla, and Pumpkin Chai. I'm excited to try both. So I get to make more coffee content. I still have to catch up on the bones content, which I have not done. And some tea, which looks really lovely. It's black tea. It's peach black tea, so it seems nice. Thank you very much. And also more bone necklaces. Because I was, as you all know, when my last one broke, I was at work and I was heartbroken. I was like, and I didn't know what happened because I was busy, and then I didn't figure it out until hours later. So it was unsalvageable because I had no idea where it was. So thank you very much for the bone necklaces. Thank you, Diana, for helping pick out the bone necklaces. So I appreciate all the gifts. And also, thank you, Diana, for all the sound canceling panels. We're going to be sound canceling this room for recording and stream and such. So, thank you very much. I got a lot of work to do on this room. Really excited. No phone. Don't do that. Don't do that. You're connected. I saw that. There's a little vertebra inside the little glass. Oh my god. This one just... Also this one. Thank you for the butterflies. Appreciate it. Also more coffee. So much coffee to try and do things with. And I did not fill this tank up before. And also, Dad gave me the sign, which I was planning to debut last week, but it just didn't work out. Also, something also happened to me on Sunday, and I hate working. Work is hard and inappropriate, and also possibly homophobic. I know, I love that sign. I am sorry about your work week. I heard Emmy started a new job. If Emmy's in here, I don't know, Emmy might join later. Who knows? I know a lot of stuff has happened. Stop cutting out. What is my Wi-Fi doing? Do we want to talk about my Wi-Fi being absolute ass right now? What is going on? Of course. All right. God. Well, hopefully that fucking dude wrecked his car later No, all the same, fuck that guy. Fuck that guy. Nobody, that's inappropriate. Straight to jail. Straight to jail. I hate people who hold service workers hostage while they're at work. You know what I mean? Because you're not supposed to be rude, and it's generally understood that you can't really say what you really would say if you weren't at work. And people take advantage of that and then just try and be wholesale assholes in the sir, this is an Arby's parking lot. Like, it's absolutely inappropriate and unnecessary. And, yeah. Good manager. Fuck that guy. Straight out the McDonald's. Throw the whole man out of this McDonald's. It's like, sir, I wasn't even far off with that Arby's comment. Sir, this isn't Arby's. Yeah. Yeah, I would hope so. Otherwise, the testosterone is not doing its job. So, yeah, voice is different. Oh, God, that was the water. Good. Protect the trans kids from the weird pedos in the McDonald's. What was that? That was my door. I don't know what that... Oh, I think the dog forgot that he could fit in the hallway. But good on that manager. Good on that manager. Fuck that guy. Congratulations on detangling the wig. That's, depending on the wig, that's a chore. Oh, hi, Casper. It's fine. Someone the other day was like, made a video that was like, he was like, I saw a guy the other day, looked anemic, like, he shakes a lot and sneezes, and I was like, was it me? That was my first thought. I was like, I'm anemic, I shake a lot, I'm cold. It's 93 degrees out, and I wore a flannel. Granted, my house is 72, so... I sat in a box for more than a year. Hey, sometimes they be sitting... I have wigs I still need to work on in the works that are just like, I have all the stuff, or I have some of the stuff, and I have not even brushed that thing yet. Like, I haven't even started. I have a... and I have one that I'm almost finished, but it's too much right now. I got Deckham from Death Parade almost finished, and I'm like, no spoons. No spoons. What are you going to do when you don't have no spoons? You don't do it. You don't do it. Oh, thank you. They have a Kaminari wig. My Kaminari wig is also, nothing. I've not done anything with Kaminari. I keep trying, and every time I try and restyle it, and I think I got it to where I want it, and I'm like, this looks good, and then I put it on myself, and I'm like, you don't do that. It doesn't look good on you. It might look good theoretically. It doesn't look good on you. Aw, thank you. Tell Toby I say hi. Toby has entered the chat. Alright. So, I'm sorry I missed last week. I was not feeling great. I am still sort of going through a period of... My insomnia comes in, like, batches, where it'll continue for, like, a period of time in one similar pattern that I cannot control. And last week it was a combination, I think, of the weather and my insomnia waking me up several hours earlier than I needed to be awake. So I would have my alarm set and I would wake up 3.5 hours early for no reason, and then I couldn't get back to sleep. And then the weather kept changing. It was like raining and storming and 70 degrees, and then the next day it would be 95. And so I was just getting like a lot of sinus pressure and migraines, and I couldn't figure it out. So thank you for bearing with me through that. But if you're new here, or you haven't been in here in a while, I don't sit here and talk the whole time, because who wants to hear that? Anyway, this is a book club. And if you don't like books, this is probably going to be hard for you. If you do like books, but you don't like reading them, well, then it doesn't really matter, because I'm going to read it to you. So, we're working through Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, and we're on Book 3, Library of Souls. And we were just about to start Chapter 4, which we probably won't get through today. I'm going to be real honest. It's like 64 pages long or so. It's a while. I'm going to be honest. So we're going to get through what we're going to get through. Two things can be true, Swiftblood, okay? Two things can be true. Anyway, we're going to get through what we're going to get through, but if you've missed the last couple weeks, you're probably not going to know what's going on. But if you want to know what's going on, you can always go to the YouTube link in my bio and catch up. All of the streams are on there, and you can re-listen and catch up, and join us next time, or come back to this one. I'll upload it pretty much a couple hours after the stream ends, if I'm lucky. Tomorrow, if I'm not. But if you need a little recap, basically the only real three peculiars we can count on that are left are Jacob, Addison, and Emma. And they're trying to get Miss Peregrine and their friends back, and they're stuck in Devil's Acre, trying to get in this impenetrable fortress. And it doesn't really super work out for them very well, and they get attacked by Ambro addicts. So that's fun. But Sharon comes along with all his cousins and saves them. So they're sort of fine, but not really, because we still don't have a super good plan, because the only real plan is Addison gets across the bridge, which he does, but he's a dog. It's probably not going to last long, and it's not going to go great, so we're all very worried for him, and that's what you missed on Glee. Who wants to read a book? Or listen to one, I suppose, since I'm doing all the reading. Okay. Let's do it. Okay. Turbulent dreams, dreams in strange languages, dreams of home, of death, odd bits of nonsense that spooled out in flickers of consciousness, swimmy and unreliable inventions of my concussed brain, a faceless woman blowing dust into my eyes, a sensation of being immersed in warm water. Emma's voice assuring me everything would be okay. They're friends. We're safe. Then deep and dreamless dark for unknown hours. The next time I awoke, I wasn't dreaming and I knew it. I was tucked into a bed in a small room. Weak light spilled from behind a drawn window shade. So, daytime. But what day? I was in a nightgown, not my old blood-stained clothes. and my eyes were clear of grit. Someone had been taking care of me. Also, though I was bone-tired, I felt little pain. My shoulder had stopped aching, and so had my head. I wasn't sure what that meant. I tried sitting up. I had to stop halfway and rest on my elbows. A glass pitcher of water stood on a night table by the bedside. In one corner of the room was a hulking wooden wardrobe. In the other, I blinked and rubbed my eyes, making sure. Yes, there was a man sleeping in a chair. My mind was moving so sluggishly that I wasn't even startled. I merely thought, that's odd. And he was so odd-looking, in fact, that I struggled briefly to understand what I was seeing. He seemed a man composed of halves. Half his hair was slicked down, while the other half was cowlicked all over the place. Half his face was scraggly beard, and the other half clean-shaven. Even his clothes, pants, rumpled sweater, ruffled Elizabethan collar, were half modern, half archaic. "Hello?" I said uncertainly. The man shouted, startling so badly that he fell out of his chair and landed on the floor in a clatter. "Oh my! Oh goodness!" He climbed back into the chair, eyes wide and hands aflutter. "You're awake!" Sorry, I didn't mean to scare you." "Ah, no, it was my fault entirely," he said, smoothing his clothes and straightening his ruffled collar. "Please, don't tell anyone I fell asleep watching you." Who are you?" I asked. "Where am I?" My mind was clearing fast, and as it did, it filled with questions. "And where's Emma?" "Right, yes," the man said, looking flustered. "I might not be the best equipped member of the household to answer questions." He whispered the word, eyebrows raised as if questions were forbidden. "But," he pointed at me, "you're Jacob." He pointed at himself. "I'm Nim." He made a whirling motion with his hand. "And this is Mr. Bentham's house. He's very eager to meet you. In fact, I'm to notify him as soon as you're awake." And here's a picture of Nim. Punching stuff. I squirmed up from my elbows to sit fully upright, the effort of which nearly exhausted me. "I don't care about any of that. I want to see Emma." "Of course, your friend." He flapped his hands like little wings while his eyes darted from side to side, as if he might find Emma in a corner of the room. "I want to see her now." "My name's Nim," he squeaked, "and I'm to notify, yes, under strict instructions." A panicky thought flew into my head that Sharon, mercenary that he was, had rescued us from the mob only to sell us for spare parts. "Emma!" I managed to shout. "Where are you?" Nim went blank and plopped into the chair. I scared him silly, I think. A moment later, feet came pounding down the hall. A man in a white coat burst into the room. "You're awake?" he exclaimed. I could only assume he was a doctor. "I want to see Emma," I said. I tried to swing my legs out of the bed, but they felt heavy as logs. The doctor rushed to my side and pushed me back towards the sheets. "Don't exert yourself. You're still recovering." The doctor ordered Nim to go find Mr. Bentham. Nim ran out, bouncing off the door jamb and flopping into the hall. And then Emma was at the door, out of breath and beaming, her hair spilling down a clean white dress. "Jacob?" At the sight of her, a burst of strength coursed through me, and I sat up, pushing the doctor aside. "Emma, you're awake," she said, running to me. "Careful with him, he's delicate," the doctor warned. Checking herself, Emma gave me the gentlest of hugs, then sat on the edge of the bed next to me. "I'm sorry I wasn't here when you woke up. They said you'd be out for hours more." "It's okay," I said. "But where are we? How long have we been here?" Emma glanced at the doctor. He was writing in a small notebook, but obviously listening. Emma turned her back to him and lowered her voice. "We're at a rich man's house in Devil's Acre, someplace hidden. Sharon brought us here a day and a half ago." "Is that all?" I said, studying Emma's face. Her skin was perfectly smooth, her cuts faded to thin white lines. "You look almost healed." "I only had a few nicks and bumps." "No way," I said. "I remember what happened out there." "You had a broken rib and a torn shoulder," the doctor interjected. "They have a woman here," Emma said. "A healer. Her body produces a powerful dust." "And a double concussion," said the doctor. "Nothing we couldn't handle in the end, but you, boy, you were nearly dead when you arrived." I patted my chest, my stomach, all the places I'd been pummeled. No pain. I lifted my right arm and rotated the shoulder. No problem. "It feels like I've got a new arm," I said, marveling. "You're lucky you didn't need a new head," came another voice, Sharon ducking to fit his full height through the doorway. "In fact, it's a shame they didn't give you one, because apparently the one you've got now is full of sawdust, disappearing like that, running off without a clue where you were going. And after all my warnings about the acre, what were you thinking?" He towered over Emma and me, wagging his long white finger. I grinned at him. "Hello, Sharon. Nice to see you again." "Yes. Ha! It's all smiles now that everything is rosy, but you nearly got yourselves killed out there." "We were lucky," Emma said. "Yes, lucky I was there. Lucky my gallows-rigging cousins were available that evening, and I was able to catch them before they'd had too much ditch lager at the Cradle and Coffin. They don't work for free, by the way. I'm adding their services to your tab, along with my damaged boat." Fine, I said. "Settle down, okay?" "What were you thinking?" he said again, his awful breath settling over us like a cloud. And then it came back to me, what I'd been thinking, and I kind of lost it. "That you were an untrustworthy lout," I fired back. "That it's only about money with you, and you probably would have sold us into slavery the first chance you got." "Yeah," I said. "We looked into it. We know all about the shady things you peculiars get up to around here, and if you think for a minute we believe that you," I pointed at Sharon, "or any of you," I pointed at the doctor, "are helping us purely out of kindness, you're nuts. So either tell us what you want with us, or let us go, because we've got..." A sudden crashing wave of exhaustion, my vision unfocused. "Got better things to..." I shook my head, tried standing up, but the room had begun to spin. Emma held my arms, and the doctor pushed me back gently onto my pillow. "We're helping you because Mr. Bentham asked us to," he said tersely. "What he wants with you, well, You'll have to ask him yourself. Like I keep saying, mister, whoever can kiss my... Emma clapped a hand over my mouth. Jacob's not feeling himself at the moment, she said. I'm sure what he meant to say was, thanks for saving us. We're in your debt. That too, I mumbled through her fingers. I was angry and scared, but also genuinely happy to be alive and to see Emma whole and healed. When I thought about that, all the fight leaked out of me, and I was filled with simple gratitude. I closed my eyes to stop the room from spinning and listen to them whisper about me. He's a problem, said the doctor. He can't be allowed to meet Mr. Bentham like this. His brain is addled, Sharon said. If the girl and I could just talk with him in private, I'm sure he could be brought around. Might we have the room to ourselves? Reluctantly, the doctor left. When he was gone, I opened my eyes again and focused on Emma, looking down at me. Where's Addison? I asked. He got across, she said. Right, I said, remembering. Have you heard from him? Has he come back yet? No, she said quietly. Not yet. I considered what that might mean, what might have happened to him, but I couldn't bear the thought. We promised to go after him, I said. If he can get across, so can we. That bridge hollow might not have cared about a dog getting across, Sharon butted in. But he'd peel off and toss right into the boil. Go away, I said to him. I want to talk to Emma in private. Why? So you can climb out the window and run away again? We're not going anywhere, Emma said. Jacob can't even get out of bed. Sharon wasn't swayed. I'll go to the corner and mind my own business, he said. That's my best offer. He went and perched himself on Nim's one-armed chair and began to whistle and clean his fingernails. Emma helped me sit up, and we pressed our foreheads together and spoke in whispers. For a moment, I was so overwhelmed by her closeness that all the questions flooding my brain vanished, and there was only her hand touching my face, brushing my cheek, my jaw. You had me so frightened, Emma said. I really thought I'd lost you. I'm fine, I said. I knew I hadn't been, but it embarrassed me to be worried over. You weren't, not at all. You should apologize to the doctor. I know. I was just freaked out, and I'm sorry if I scared you. She nodded and then looked away. Her eyes drifted briefly to the wall, and when they returned, a new hardness glittered in them. I like to think I'm strong, she said. That the reason I'm free right now instead of Bronwyn, or Millard, or Enoch, is that I'm strong enough to be depended on. That's always been me, the one who could take anything. Like there's a pain sensor inside me that's not switched on. I can block out awful things and get on with it, do what needs doing. Her hands found mine atop the sheets, our fingers knotted together, automatic. But when I think about you, how you looked when they pulled you off the ground, after those people. She let out a shaky breath and shook her head as if chasing away the memory. I just break. Me too, I said, remembering the pain I felt whenever I saw Emma hurt, the terror that gripped me every time she was in danger. Me too. I squeezed her hand and searched for something more to say, but she spoke first. I need you to promise me something. Anything, I said.
I need you to not die.
I cracked a smile. Emma didn't.
You can't, she said. If I lose you, the rest isn't worth a damn.
I slid my arms around her, pulled her tight against me. I'll do my best.
That's not good enough, she whispered. Promise me.
Okay, I won't die.
Say I promise.
I promise. You say it too.
I promise,
she said. Ah, Sharon said airily from the corner. The sweet lies lovers tell. We broke apart. You're not supposed to be listening, I said. That was long enough, he said, dragging his chair loudly across the floor and planting it next to the bed. We have important things to discuss, namely, the apology you owe me.
For what?
I said, irritated. Impugning my character and reputation.
Every word was true, I said. This loop is full of scumbags and creeps, and you are a money-driven lout, with not an ounce of sympathy for the plight of his own people, Emma added. Though, again, thank you for saving us.
Around here, you learn to look out for number one, Sharon said. Everyone's got a story, a plight. Everyone wants something from you, and they're almost always lying. So yes, I remain unapologetically self-directed and profit-motivated. But I deeply resent your suggestion that I would have dealings of any kind with someone who trades in peculiar flesh. Just because I'm a capitalist doesn't mean I'm a black-hearted bastard.
And how could we have known that? I said. We had to beg and bribe you to not abandon us at the dock, remember?
He shrugged. That was before I realized who you are. I glanced at Emma, then pointed to my chest.
Who I am?
You, my boy. Mr. Bentham's been waiting a long time to speak to you. Since the day I first hung my shingle as a boatman, 40-odd years ago, Bentham ensured me safe passage in and out of the acre if I promised to keep an eye out for you while I did it. I was to bring you to see him, and now, finally, I've kept my end of the bargain.
You must have me confused with someone else, I said. I'm nobody.
He said you'd be able to speak to Hollowgast. How many peculiars do you know who can do that?
But he's only 16, Emma said. Really 16. So how can...
That's why it took me a while to put it all together, said Sharon. I had to go see Mr. Bentham about it personally. Which is where I was when you two ran away. You don't fit the description, see? All these years, I've been keeping watch for an old man.
An old man, I said.
Right.
Who can talk to hollows?
As I said. Emma tightened her grip on my hand, and we exchanged a look. No, it couldn't be. And then I swung my legs out of bed, charged with new energy.
I want to talk to this Bentham guy, right now.
He'll see you when he's ready, Sharon said.
No, I said. Now. As it happened at that very moment, there was a knock at the door. Sharon opened it to find Nim. Mr. Bentham will meet our guest for tea in 1 hour, he said. In the library. We can't wait an hour, I said. We've wasted too much time here already. At this, Nim went a bit red and puffed out his cheeks. Wasted? What Jacob meant, Emma said, is that we have another pressing engagement elsewhere in the acre that we're already late for. Mr. Bentham insists upon meeting you properly, Nim said. As he always says, then there's no time for matters. The world's lost to us anyway. Speaking of which, I am to make sure you're dressed appropriately. He went to the wardrobe and swung open its heavy doors. Inside were several racks of clothes. You may choose what you like. Emma pulled out a frilly dress and curled her lip. This feels so wrong. Playing dress-up and having tea while our friends and Inburns are forced to endure bird knows what. We're doing it for them, I said. We only have to play along till Bentham tells us what he knows. It could be important. Or he could just be a lonely old man. Don't talk about Mr. Bentham that way, Nim said, his face puckering. Mr. Bentham is a saint, a giant among men. Oh, calm down, Sharon said. He went to the window and pulled open the blinds, allowing a weak pea-soup daylight to dribble into the room. Up and at 'em, he said to us. You two have a date. I threw back my covers, and Emma helped me out of bed. To my surprise, my legs took my weight. I glanced out the window at an empty street enveloped in yellow murk, and then, with Emma holding my arm, went to the wardrobe to pick out a change of clothes. I found an outfit on a hanger tagged with my name. Can we have some privacy to change, please? I said. Sharon looked at Nim and shrugged. Nim's hands flapped. It wouldn't be proper. They're fine, Sharon said, waving his hand. No monkey business. All right. Emma turned beet red. I wouldn't have any idea what you mean. Sure you wouldn't. He shooed Nim out of the room, then paused at the doorway. I can trust you not to run away again. Why would we? I said. We want to see Mr. Bentham. We're not going anywhere, Emma said. But why are you still here? Mr. Bentham asked me to keep an eye on you. I wondered if that meant Sharon would stop us if we tried to leave. Must be a pretty big favor you owed him, I said. Massive, he replied. I owe the man my life. And bending himself nearly in half, he squeezed out into the hallway. You change clothes in here, Emma said, nodding towards a small connecting bathroom. I'll change in there, and no peeking until I knock. Okay, I said, exaggerating my disappointment in order to try to hide it. While seeing Emma in her underwear was an undeniably appealing prospect, all the life-threatening peril we'd endured lately had put that part of my teenage brain into a kind of deep freeze. A few more serious kisses, though, and my baser instincts might start to reassert themselves. But anyway, I shut myself in the bathroom, all gleaming white tile and heavy iron fixtures, and leaned over the sink to examine myself in a silvered mirror. I was a mess. My face was puffy and cross-hatched with
angry pink lines, which were healing quickly, but still there, reminders of every blow I'd suffered. My torso was a geography of bruises, painless but ugly. Blood was caked into the hard-to-clean folds of my ears. The sight of it made me dizzy, and I had to grip the sink to stay upright. I had a sudden nasty flashback, fist and feet thrashing at me, the ground rushing up. No one had ever tried to kill me with bare hands before. That was something new, much different than being hunted by hollows, which ran on instinct. Different, too, than being shot at. Bullets were a quick, impersonal way to kill. Using your hands, though, that took work. It required hate. It was a strange and sour thing to know that such hatred had been directed at me, that peculiars who didn't even know my name had, in a moment of collective madness, hated me enough to try to beat out my life with their fists. I felt shamed by it, dehumanized somehow, though I couldn't exactly understand why. It was something I'd have to reckon with if one day I ever had the luxury of time to reckon with such things. I turned on the tap to wash my face. The pipes shuddered and groaned, but after a big orchestral flourish, they produced only a hiccup of brown water. This Bentham fellow might have been rich, but no amount of luxury could cocoon him from the reality of the hellish place where he lived. How had he ended up here? More intriguing still, how did the man know about my grandfather? Surely that's who Sharon had been referring to when he said Bentham was looking for an old man who could speak to hollows. Perhaps my grandfather had met Bentham during his war years, after he'd left Miss Peregrine's house, but before he'd come to America. It was a defining period of his life which he'd spoken about only rarely and never in detail. Despite all I'd learned about my grandfather in the past few months, in many respects he remained a mystery to me. Now that he was gone, I thought sadly, perhaps it would always be so. I put on the clothes Bentham had given me, a preppy-looking blue shirt and gray wool sweater combo with simple black pants. It all fit perfectly, as if they'd known I was coming. As I was slipping into a pair of brown leather Oxford shoes, Emma knocked on the door.
"How are you faring in there?"
I opened the door to a blast of yellow. Emma looked miserable in an enormous canary-colored dress with poofy sleeves and a hem that swam around her feet. She sighed.
"It was the lesser of many sartorial evils, I assure you."
"You look like Big Bird," I said, following her out of the bathroom. "And I look like Mr. Rogers. This Bentham is a cruel man." Both references were lost on her. Ignoring me, she crossed to the window and looked out.
"Yes, good."
"What's good?" I said.
"This ledge. It's the size of Cornwall, and there are handholds everywhere. Safer than a jungle gym."
"And why would we care about the safety of the ledge?" I asked, joining her at the window.
"Because Sharon's watching the hall, so obviously we can't go out that way."
Sometimes it seemed like Emma had whole conversations with me inside her head, ones I wasn't privy to, and then she'd get frustrated that I was confused when she finally let me in on them. Her brain worked so quickly that once in a while it got ahead of itself. "We can't go anywhere," I said. "We've got to meet Bentham."
"And we will, but I'll be hanged if I'm spending the next hour twiddling my thumbs in this room. Saintly Mr. Bentham is an exile living in Devil's Acre, which means he's likely a dangerous lowlife with a sordid past. I want to have a look around his house and see what we can find out. We'll be back here before anyone notices we're gone. Word of honor.
Ah, good. A stealth operation. We're dressed perfectly then.
Very funny.
I was in hard-soled shoes that made every footstep sound like a hammer blow. She was in a dress yellower than a hazard sign, and I'd only recently found the energy to stand on my own 2 feet, and yet I agreed. She was often right about these things, and I had come to depend on her instincts.
If someone spots us, so be it, she said. The man's waited eons to meet you. Apparently, he's not going to kick us out now for giving ourselves a little tour.
She opened the window and climbed onto the ledge. I stuck my head out cautiously. We were 2 stories above an empty street in the good section of Devil's Acre. I recognized a stack of firewood. It was where we'd been hiding when Sharon exited the abandoned-looking storefront. Directly below us was the law office of Monday, Dyson, and Stripe. There was no such firm, of course. It was a front, a secret entrance to Bentham's house. Emma offered her hand to me.
I know you're not a great fan of heights, but I won't let you fall.
After being dangled above a boiling river by a hollow, this little drop didn't seem so frightening. And Emma was right. The ledge was wide, and decorative knobs and gargoyle faces protruded everywhere from the masonry, making natural handholds. I climbed out, grabbed on, and shimmied along after her. When the ledge turned a corner, and we felt fairly certain that we were paralleling a hallway out of Sharon's view, we tried opening a window. It was locked. We shimmied on and tried the next one, but it, too, was locked, as were the 3rd, 4th, and 5th windows. We're running out of building, I said. What if none of them open?
This next one will, Emma said.
How do you know?
I'm clairvoyant. And with that, she kicked it, sending shattered glass into the room and tinkling down the front of the building.
No, you're a hoodlum, I said.
Emma grinned at me and then knocked the last few shards from the frame with the flat of her hand.
She stepped through the opening. I followed, somewhat reluctantly, into a dark and cavernous room. It took a moment for our eyes to adjust. The only light came from the window shade we'd just broken, its puny glow revealing the edge of a pack rat's paradise. Wooden crates and boxes climbed to the ceiling in teetering stacks, leaving only a small aisle between them.
I get the feeling Bentham doesn't like to throw things away, Emma said.
In reply, I released a rapid-fire triple sneeze. The air was swimming with dust. Emma blessed me and lit a flame in her hand, which she held up to the nearest crate. It was labeled RM-AM 157. What do you think is in them? I said.
We'd need a crowbar to find out, said Emma. These are sturdy.
I thought you were clairvoyant. She made a face at me. Lacking a crowbar, we ventured further into the room, Emma enlarging her flame as we left the petering window light behind. The narrow path between the boxes led through an arched door and into another room, which was equally dark and nearly as cluttered. Instead of crates, it was crammed with bulky objects hidden beneath white dust covers. Emma was about to pull one away, but before she could, I caught her arm.
What's wrong?
She said, annoyed. There might be something awful under there.
Yes, exactly, she said,
and tore away the cover, which scared up a cyclone of dust. When the air cleared, we saw ourselves reflected dimly in a glass-topped case of the sort you find in museums, waist-high and about 4 feet square. Inside, neatly arranged and labeled, were a carved coconut husk, a whale vertebra fashioned into a comb, a small stone axe, and a few other items, the usefulness of which wasn't immediately obvious. A placard on the glass read, "Housewares used by peculiars on the island of Espiritu Santo, New Hebrides, South Pacific region, circa 1750. "Huh," Emma said. "Weird," I replied. She replaced the dust cover. Even though there was a little use in covering our tracks, it wasn't as if we could unbreak the window, and we moved slowly through the room, uncovering other objects at random. All were museum displays of one type or other. The contents bore little relation to one another save that they had once been owned or used by peculiars. One contained a selection of brightly colored silks worn by peculiars in the Far East, circa 1800. Another displayed what appeared at first glance to be a wide cross-section of tree trunk, but upon closer inspection was in fact a door with iron hinges and a knob made from a tree knot. Its placard read, "Entrance to a peculiar home in the Great Hibernian Wilderness, circa 1530. "Wow," Emma said, leaning in for a closer look. "I never knew there were so many of us in the world." "Or used to be," I said. "I wonder if there's still... Okay, sorry, my internet glitched for a second. "Or used to be," I said. "I wonder if they're still out there." The last display we looked at was labeled "Weaponry of the Hittite Peculiars, Kaimakli Underground City, no date." Bafflingly, all we could see inside were dead beetles and butterflies. Emma swung her flame around to look at me. "I think we've established that Bentham's a history buff. Ready to move on?" We hurried through 2 more rooms filled with dust-covered display cases, then arrived at a utilitarian staircase which we climbed to the next floor. The landing door opened onto a long and lushly carpeted hallway. It seemed to go on forever, its regularly spaced doors and repeating wallpaper creating a dizzying impression of endlessness. We walked along, peeking into rooms. They were furnished identically, laid out identically, wallpapered identically. Each had a bed, a night table, and a wardrobe, just like the room I'd recuperated in. A pattern of red poppy vines curled across the wallpaper and continued through the carpeting in hypnotic waves, making the whole place seem like it was being slowly reclaimed by nature. In fact, the rooms would have been entirely indistinguishable had it not been for the small brass plaques nailed to the doors, which gave each a unique name. All were exotic sounding. The Alps Room, the Gobi Room, the Amazon Room. Perhaps 50 rooms lined the hallway, and we were halfway down its length, hurrying now, certain there was nothing of use to be discovered here, when a blast of air rolled over us that was so cold it prickled my skin. "Whew," I said, hugging myself. "Where'd that come from?" "Could be someone left a window open," Emma said. "But it's not cold outside," I said, and she shrugged. We continued down the hall, the air chilling more the farther we went. Finally, we turned a corner and came to a section of hall where icicles had formed on the ceiling and frost glistened on the carpet. The cold seemed to be emanating from one room in particular, and we stood before it watching flakes of snow waft one by one from the crack beneath its door. "That is very strange," I said, shivering.
"Definitely unusual," Emma agreed, "even by my standards."
I stepped forward, my feet crunching on the snowy carpet, to examine the plaque on the door. It read, "The Siberia Room." I looked at Emma. She looked at me.
"It's probably just a hyperactive air conditioner," she said.
"Let's open it and find out," I said. I reached for the knob and tried it, but it wouldn't turn. "It's locked." Emma put her hand on the knob and kept it there for several seconds. It began to drip water as ice melted from inside it.
"Not locked," she said. "Frozen."
She twisted the knob and pushed the door, but it only opened an inch. Snow was piled up on the other side. We put our shoulders to its surface and, on the count of 3, shoved. The door flung open, and a gust of Arctic air slapped us. Snow flurried everywhere, into our eyes, into the hall behind us. Shielding our faces, we peered inside. It was furnished like the other rooms. Bed, wardrobe, night table. But here were indistinct humps of white buried under deep piled snow. "What is this?" I said, shouting to be heard above the wind's howl. "Another loop?"
"It can't be," Emma shouted back. "We're already in one."
Leaning into the wind, we stepped inside for a closer look. I thought that the snow and ice were coming through an open window, but then the flurry abated, and I saw there was no window at all, not even a wall at the far end of the room. Ice-coated walls stood on either side of us, a ceiling above us, and probably a carpet was somewhere below our feet. But where a fourth wall should have been, the room gave way to an ice cave, and beyond that, to open air, open ground, and an endless vista of white snow and black rocks. This was, as near as I could tell, Siberia. A single track of shoveled snow led through the room and into the whiteness beyond. We shuffled down the path, out of the room and into the cave, marveling at everything around us. Giant spikes of ice rose from the floor and hung from the ceiling like a forest of white trees. Emma was hard to impress. She was nearly 100 years old and had seen a lifetime's worth of peculiar things, but this place seemed to fill her with genuine wonder.
"This is astonishing,"
she said, bending to scoop up a handful of snow. She tossed it at me, laughing.
"Isn't it astonishing?"
"It is," I said through chattering teeth. "But what's it doing here?" We threaded between the giant icicles and emerged into the open. Looking back, I could no longer see the room at all. It was perfectly camouflaged inside the cave. Emma hurried ahead, then turned back and said, "Over here," in an urgent voice. I shuffled through deepening snow to her side. The landscape was bizarre. Before us was a white, flat field, past which the ground fell away in deep, undulating folds, like crevices. "We're not alone," said Emma, and pointed to a detail I'd missed. A man was standing at the edge of a crevasse, peering down into it. "What's he doing?" I said, more or less rhetorically.
"Looking for something, it would seem."
We watched him walk slowly along the crevasse, always staring down. After about a minute, I realized I was so cold that I could no longer feel my face. A gust of snowy wind blew up and blanked the scene. When it died down a moment later, the man was staring right at us. Emma stiffened.
Uh-oh.
Do you think he sees us? Emma looked down at her bright yellow dress.
Yes.
And here are some pictures. We stood there for a moment, our eyes locked on the man as he stared at us across the white wasteland. And then he took off, running in our direction. He was hundreds of yards away through deep snow and a landscape of undulating fissures. It was unclear whether he meant us harm, but we were in a place we weren't supposed to be, and it seemed like the best thing to do was leave, a decision that was soundly reinforced by a howl, the likes of which I'd heard only once before in the gypsies' camp. A bear. A quick look over our shoulders confirmed it. A giant black bear had clawed its way up from one of the crevasses to join the man on the snow, and they were both coming after us. The bear clearing ground much more quickly than the man. "Bear!" I shouted redundantly. I tried to run, but my frozen feet refused to cooperate. Seeming impervious to the cold, Emma grabbed my arm and swept me along. We lurched back into the cave, stumbled through the room, and tripped out the door, around which a penumbra of blowing snow was filling the hallway. I pulled the door shut behind us, as if that would stop a bear, and we retraced our steps down the long hall, down the stairs, and back into Bentham's dead museum to hide ourselves among his white-draped phantoms. We know. We'll get to the bear. Don't worry. They address it. We hid between a wall and a hulking, dust-sheeted monolith in the furthest corner we could find, straitjacketing ourselves into a space so narrow that we could not turn to face each other, the cold we'd run from settling firmly into our bones. We stood silent and shivering, stiff as mannequins, the snow on our clothes melting into puddles at our feet. Emma's left hand took my right. It was all the warmth and meaning we could trade. We were developing a language that was entirely untranslatable into words, a special vocabulary of gestures and glances and touches and increasingly deep kisses that was growing richer, more intense, more complex by the hour. It was fascinating and essential, and in moments like this made me just a little less cold and a little less scared than I might have been otherwise. When after a few minutes no bears showed up to eat us, we dared to exchange whispers. "Was that a loop we were in?" I asked. "A loop within a loop?"
"I don't know what that was,"
Emma replied.
"Siberia, that's what the door said." "If that was Siberia, then the room it was in was some kind of portal, not a loop, and portals don't exist, of course."
"Of course," I replied, though it wouldn't have been so strange to believe, in a world where time loops existed, that portals did too. What if it was just a really old loop? I suggested. Like Ice Age old. 10 or 15,000 years. Devil's Acre might have looked like that back then. I don't think there are any loops that ancient, Emma said. My teeth chattered. I can't stop shaking, I said. Emma pressed her side to mine and rubbed my back with her warm hand. If I could make a portal to anywhere, I said, Siberia would not be high on my list of choices.
Where would you go then?
Hawaii, maybe? Though I guess that's boring. Everyone would say Hawaii. Don't go to Hawaii. Don't go there. It's not for you. PSA.
Not me.
Where would you go?
The place you're from,
Emma said.
In Florida.
Why on earth would you want to go there?
I think it'd be interesting to see where you grew up.
That's sweet, I said. There's not much to it, though. It's really quiet. She leaned her head on my shoulder and exhaled a warm breath down my arm.
Sounds like heaven.
You've got snow in your hair, I said, but it melted when I tried to brush it out. I shook the cold water from my hand onto the floor, and that's when I noticed our footprints. We'd left a trail of melting snow that probably led right to our hiding spot. What dimwits we are, I said, pointing out the tracks. We should have left our shoes behind.
It's okay, said Emma. If they hadn't tracked us by now, they probably...
Loud, clonking footsteps echoed from across the room, accompanied by the sound of a large animal breathing.
Back to the window, quick as you can,
Emma hissed, and we wormed out of our hiding spot. I tried to run, but slipped in a puddle. I grabbed the closest thing at hand, which happened to be the sheet covering the large object we'd been hiding behind. The sheet came ripping away, uncovering another display case with a resounding zzz, and landing me on the floor in a pile of rumpled canvas. When I looked up, the first thing I saw was a girl, not Emma, who was standing above me, but past her, inside the case, behind the glass. She had a perfectly angelic face and a ruffled dress and a bow in her hair, and she stared glassily at nothing in what seemed the permanent rictus of a taxidermied human being. I freaked. Emma turned to see what I was freaking out about, and then she freaked. She dragged me to my feet, and we ran. And there's a picture. Once again, there is no taxidermied human being. They're just embalmed. That is how we preserve humans. There is no taxidermy for a human body. Is just embalming. Anyway, does look pretty creepy though. Did you have to make an Ed Gein reference? Really? Did you have to? Thanks, Dad. I mean, you can, but it would just be worse than embalming. It would be worse. It would just be worse. I'm not gonna get into this right now. We only have 30 minutes, and we still have. We just hit like the halfway point for the 64-page chapter. We don't have time. Okay. I'll get to it later. I'd forgotten all about the guy chasing us. The bear, Siberia. I just wanted to get out of that room, away from the stuffed girl, and far away from any possibility that Emma and I might end up like her, dead and encased behind glass. Now I knew all I needed to know about this Bentham guy. He was some kind of twisted collector, and I was sure that if we looked under any more dust covers, we'd find more specimens like the girl. We sped around a corner only to find, towering before us, a terrifying 10-foot mountain of fur and claws. We screamed, tried too late to stop running, and slid into a pile at the bear's feet. There we cowered, waiting to die. Hot, stinking breath rolled over us. Something wet and rough mopped the side of my face. I'd been licked by a bear. And someone was laughing. "Calm yourself, he won't bite," the someone said, and I uncovered my face to see a long, furry nose and big brown eyes staring down at me. Had the bear spoken? Do bears talk about themselves in the third person? "His name's P.T., the someone continued, "and he's my bodyguard. He's quite friendly, provided you stay on my good side. P.T., sit." P.T. sat, then began licking his paw instead of my face. I flipped myself right side up, wiped the slobber from my cheek, and finally saw the owner of the voice. He was an older man, a gentleman, and he wore a subtle smirk that complemented his killer outfit: top hat, cane, gloves, and a high white collar that rose from the top of his dark jacket. He bowed slightly and tipped his hat. "Myron Bentham, at your service." There's Bentham. "Back away slowly," Emma whispered in my ear, and we stood up together and sidestepped out of the bear's reach. "We don't want any trouble, mister. Just let us go, and no one gets hurt." Bentham spread his arms and smiled. "You're free to leave any time you like, but that would be such a disappointment. You've only just arrived, and we have so much to talk about." "Yeah," I said. "Maybe you can start by explaining that girl in the case over there." "And the Siberia room," said Emma. "You're upset, you're cold, and you're wet. Wouldn't you rather discuss all this over a pot of hot tea?" "Yes, but I wasn't going to say so." "We're not going anywhere with you until we know what's happening here," said Emma. "Very well," Bentham replied, not losing an ounce of his good humor. "That was my assistant, you surprised, in the Siberia room, which, as you likely gathered, leads to a time loop in Siberia." "But that's impossible," said Emma. "Siberia is thousands of miles away." 3,489, he replied. But making interloop travel possible has been my life's work. He turned to me. As for the case you uncovered, that's Sophronia Winstead. She was the first peculiar child born to the royal family of England. Fascinating life she led, if a bit tragic in the end. I have all sorts of notable peculiars here in my peculiarium. Well-known and unknown, famous and infamous. Any or all of which I'm happy to show you. I have nothing to hide. He's a psycho, I muttered to Emma. He just wants to stuff us and add us to his collection. Bentham laughed. His hearing, apparently, was very sharp. They're only wax models, my boy. I'm a collector and a preservationist, yes, but not of humans. Do you really think I waited so long to meet you, only to pull out all your insides and lock you in a cabinet? I've heard of stranger hobbies, I said, thinking of Enoch and his army of homunculi. What is it you want with us? All in good time, he said. Let's get you warm and dry first, then tea, then... I don't mean to be rude, Emma cut in. But we've spent too much time here already. Our friends are all right, for the moment, Bentham said. I've looked into the matter, and it isn't as close to midnight for them as you might imagine. How do you know? Emma said quickly. What do you mean it isn't close? What do you mean you looked into it? I said, talking over her. Jacob, don't talk over. Anyway. All in good time, Bentham repeated. I know it's difficult, but you must be patient. There's too much to tell all at once, and in such a sorry state. He stretched out an arm towards us. Look, you're shivering. Fine, then, I said. Let's have tea. Excellent, said Bentham. He tapped his cane twice on the floor. P.T., come. The bear grunted in an agreeable sort of way, stood on its hind legs and walked, waddling like a stubby-legged fat person to where Bentham stood. Upon reaching him, the animal bent down and scooped him into the air, carrying him like a baby, one paw supporting his back and the other his legs. I know it's an unconventional way to travel, Bentham said over P.T.'s bushy shoulder, but I tire easily. He pointed ahead of them with his cane and said, P.T., library. Emma and I watched in amazement as P.T. began to walk away with Mr. Bentham. You don't see that every day, I thought, which was true of nearly everything I'd seen that day. P.T., stop, Bentham commanded. The bear stopped. Bentham waved to us. Are you coming? We'd been staring. Sorry, Emma said, and we ran to catch up. By a bear, nonetheless, rich enough to be carried by a bear. Imagine if you just had a bear as a butler, just bearing it up. Name that bear Berenstein. It'd be Berenstein the bear. Okay. Eat the fridge. This message has been approved by bears. Okay. I know, that was the point. I was Mandela affecting everybody on purpose. You name the bear Berenstein so that when people are like, and then they bring it up, and then they gaslight themselves, you let them do the work of the gaslighting. That's what I'm saying. Never mind. Don't worry about it. As a bear, I approve this message. Okay. We wended our way through the maze after Bentham and his bear. "Is your bear peculiar?" I asked. "Yes, he's a grim bear," said Bentham, rubbing P.T.'s shoulder affectionately. "They are the preferred companions of Imbrans in Russia and Finland, and grim bear taming is an old and respected art among peculiars there. They're strong enough to fight off a hologast, yet gentle enough to care for a child. They're warmer than electric blankets on winter nights, and they make fearsome protectors, as you'll see here. P.T. left." As Bentham extolled the virtues of grim bears, we came into a small anteroom. Under a glass canopy in the middle of the room were 3 ladies, and, towering over them, a giant, vicious-looking bear. My breath caught for a moment before I realized they were motionless, another of Bentham's displays. "That's Miss Waxwing, Miss Troupial, and Miss Grebe," Bentham said, "and their grim Alexei." The grim bear, on second look, appeared to be protecting the wax Imbrans. The ladies were posed calmly around it, while the bear was raised on its hind legs, frozen in mid-roar, while swiping its paw at an enemy. Its other paw rested almost sweetly on one of the Imbran's shoulders, and her fingers were hooked around one of its long nails, as if to demonstrate her casual mastery over such a fearsome creature. And here's a picture. He's just waving at the kids. Now this is quite a bit to get through, so I'm not sure if we're going to get through all of it, but we're going to try our best. "Alexei was P.T.'s great uncle," Bentham said. "Say hello to your uncle, P.T." P.T. grunted. "If only you could do that with hollows," Emma whispered to me. "How long does it take to train a grim bear?" I asked Bentham. "Years," he replied. "Grims are naturally very independent." "Years," I whispered to Emma. Emma rolled her eyes. "And is Alexei made of wax too?" she said to Bentham. "Oh, no, he's taxidermy." Apparently, Bentham's aversion to stuffing peculiar folk did not extend to peculiar animals. If Addison were here, I thought, there'd be fireworks. I shivered. Emma ran a warm hand up my back. Bentham noticed, too, and said, "Forgive me, I so seldom have visitors that I can't help showing off my collection when they come. Now, I keep promising tea, and tea there shall be." Bentham pointed his cane at P.T., resumed walking. We followed them out of the dust-sheeted artifact storerooms through other parts of the house. It was in many ways the home of an average rich man. There was a marble-columned entry hall, a formal dining room with tapestried walls and seating 4 dozens, wings whose sole purpose seemed to be the display of tastefully arranged furnishings. But in each room, alongside everything else, were always a few objects from Bentham's peculiar collection. "15th century Spain," he said, indicating a gleaming suit of armor standing in a hall. "Had it made new. Fits me like a glove." At last we came to the library, the most beautiful I'd ever seen. Bentham told P.T. to set him down, brushed fur from his jacket, and showed us in. The room was 3 stories high at least, with shelves rising to dizzying heights above us. An array of staircases, catwalks, and rolling ladders had been constructed to reach them. I confess I haven't read them all, Bentham said, but I'm working on it. He ushered us towards a battalion of couches surrounding a flaming hearth whose warmth filled the room. Waiting by the fire were Sharon and Nim. "Call me an untrustworthy lout," Sharon hissed, but before he berated me further, Bentham shooed him away to fetch us blankets. We were under the protection of the master's good graces, and Sharon's tongue-lashing would have to wait. Within a minute, we were seated on a couch and wrapped in blankets. Nim fluttered around preparing tea on gilded trays, and PT, curled before the flames, was fast settling into a state of hibernation. I tried to resist the feeling of cozy contentedness that was beginning to settle over me and focus on our unfinished business. The big questions and seemingly intractable problems. Our friends and inbreds. The absurd and hopeless task we had assigned ourselves. It was enough to crush me if I thought about it all at once. So I asked Nim for 3 lumps of sugar and enough cream to turn the tea white, then downed it in 3 gulps and asked for more. Sharon had retreated to a corner where he could sulk but still overhear our conversation. Emma was eager to dispense with the formalities.
"So," she said, "can we talk now?"
Bentham ignored her. He was sitting across from us, but staring at me, the oddest little grin on his face. "What?" I said, wiping a dribble of tea from my chin. "It's uncanny," he replied. "You're the spitting image." "Of who?" "Of your grandfather, of course." I lowered my teacup. "You knew him?" "I did. He was a friend to me, long ago, when I badly needed one." I glanced at Emma. She'd gone a bit pale and was clenching her teacup. "He died a few months ago," I said. "Yes, I was very sorry to hear it," Bentham said. "And surprised, to be honest, that he held out as long as he did. I assumed he'd been killed years ago. He had so many enemies. But he was exceedingly talented, your grandfather."
"What was the nature of your friendship, exactly?" said Emma, her tone like a police interrogator's.
"And you must be Emma Bloom," Bentham said, finally looking at her. "I've heard a great deal about you." She seemed surprised.
"You have?"
"Oh, yes. Abraham was very fond of you."
"That's news to me," she said, blushing.
"You're even prettier than he said you were." She clenched her jaw.
"Thank you,"
she said flatly.
"How did you know him?"
Bentham's smile wilted. "Down to business, then?"
"If you wouldn't mind."
"Not at all," he said, though his demeanor had cooled by a few degrees. "Now, you asked me before about the Siberia room, and I know, Miss Bloom, that you were unsatisfied with the answer I gave."
"Yes, but we are more interested in Jacob's grandfather and why you brought us here."
"They are related, I promise. The room in this house generally is the place to begin." "Okay," I said. "Tell us about the house." Bentham took a breath and steepled his fingers against his lip for a moment, thinking. Then he said, "This house is filled with priceless artifacts I've brought back over a lifetime of expeditions, but none are more valuable than the house itself. It is a machine, a device of my own invention. I call it the Panloopticon.
Mr. Bentham's a genius,
Nim said, laying a plate of sandwiches before us.
Sandwich, Mr. Bentham.
Bentham waved him away. But even that is not quite bedrock, he continued. My story begins long before this house was built, when I was a lad about your age, Jacob. My brother and I fancied ourselves explorers. We pored over the maps of Perplexus Anomalous and dreamed of visiting all the loops he'd discovered, of finding new ones and visiting them not just once, but again and again. In this way, we hoped to make Peculiardom great again. He leaned forward. Do you understand what I mean? I frowned. Make it great with maps? No, not just with maps. Ask yourself, what makes us weak as a people? Whites? Emma guessed. Hollows? I said. Before either of them existed, Bentham prodded. Emma said, persecution by normals? No, that is just a symptom of our weakness. What makes us weak is geography. There are, by my rough estimate, some 10,000 peculiars in the world today. We know there must be. Just as we know there must be other planets in the universe that harbor intelligent life, it is mathematically mandatory. He smiled and sipped his tea. Now just imagine 10,000 peculiars, all with astounding talents, all in one place and united by a common cause. They'd be a power to be reckoned with, no? I suppose so, Emma said. Most definitely so, Bentham said. But we are splintered by geography into hundreds of weak subunits, 10 peculiars here, 12 there, because it is extraordinarily difficult to travel from a loop in the Australian outback, for example, to a loop in the Horn of Africa. There are not only the inherent dangers of normals in the natural world to consider, but the dangers of aging forward during a long journey. The tyranny of geography precludes all but the most cursory visits between distant loops, even in this modern era of air travel. He paused for a moment before continuing, his eyes scanning the room. Now then, imagine there was a link between that loop in Australia and the one in Africa. Suddenly those two populations could develop a relationship, trade with each other, learn from each other, band together to defend each other in terms of crisis. All sorts of exciting possibilities arise which were previously impossible. And gradually, as more and more such connections are made, the peculiar world is transformed from a collection of far-flung tribes hiding in isolated loops to a mighty nation, united and strong. Bentham had grown increasingly animated as he spoke, and at this last bit he'd raised his arms and spread his fingers like he was grasping for an invisible pull-up bar. Hence the machine? I ventured. Hence the machine, he said, lowering his hands. We'd been searching, my brother and I, for an easier way to explore the peculiar world, and instead we hit upon a way to unite it. The Panloopticon was to be the savior of our people, an invention that would change the nature of peculiar society forever. It works like this. You begin here, in the house, with a small piece of the machine called a shuttle. It fits in your hand, he said, opening his palm. You take it with you, out of the house, out of the loop, and then across the present, to another loop, which could be on the other side of the world, or the next village over. And when you return here, the shuttle will have collected and brought back the DNA-like signature of that other loop, which can be used to grow a second entrance to it here inside this house.
In that hallway upstairs, Emma guessed. With all the doors and little plaques.
Exactly, said Bentham. Every one of those rooms is a loop entrance that my brother and I, over the course of many years, harvested and brought back. With the Panloopticon, the initial arduous trek of first contact has to be made only once, and every return trip thereafter is instantaneous.
Like laying telegraph lines,
Emma said. Just so, said Bentham. And in that way, theoretically, the house becomes a central repository for all loops everywhere. I thought about that, about how hard it had been to reach Miss Peregrine's loop. Whoop. Whoop. Oh, there we go. We're back. Sorry, my thread dipped out. About how hard it had been to reach Miss Peregrine's loop the first time. What if instead of having to go all the way to a little island off the coast of Wales, I could have entered Miss Peregrine's loop from my closet in Inglewood? I could have lived both lives, at home with my parents, and here with my friends, and Emma. Except, if that had existed, Grandpa Portman and Emma never would have had to break up, which was a sentence so strange it gave me the tailbone-tingling willies. Bentham stopped and sipped his tea. Cold, he said, and set it down. Emma peeled off her blanket, got up, crossed the floor to Bentham's couch, and dipped the tip of her index finger in his tea. In a moment, it was boiling again. He grinned at her. Fantastic, he said. She removed her finger.
One question.
Oh, I'll bet I know what it is, Bentham said.
Okay, what is it?
If such a wonderful thing really exists, why haven't you heard about it before now?
That's it,
she said, and returned to sit next to me. And we are running out of time. So actually, that seems like a good point in this conversation to stop. And we'll finish it up next time. I knew we probably weren't going to get all the way through the chapter, but I'm glad we got to this conversation. Because this is an integral conversation, and it's very long, and breaking it up into chunks, I feel like, makes it a little bit of an easier read. So we're going to find out next time why you haven't heard of it. But I bet you can guess. Yeah, I know. It feels like we haven't been doing that so long. Someone said something earlier, and then I'm not going to scroll all the way back, am I? I thought someone asked me a question. I wasn't sure. But I didn't get to see it because I was in the middle of reading. Apologies. But that is a good place to stop, believe me. Because this conversation has several different segments to it. And that is the introduction of what Bentham's house is, how Bentham's doing, how Bentham knows, how Bentham is sort of involved. He knows Jacob's grandfather. He knows some stuff. Him and his brother wanted to make a weird machine of a house that led to all the loops of everywhere, but it doesn't work unless it's Siberia. For now. And so we're going to be getting the follow-up to that next week. So hopefully there won't be too much of a swerve. I'll remember to recap next time to let you know where we left off, so you know what's going on. And also, I can update the YouTube far faster now that I have a new phone and I have space on my phone to save all the content. Of course, it only works in fucking Siberia. No, the worst place to go. No. But before Lady Aoife and other people gotta go and have schedules and be productive members of society, do we want to do cat? We're gonna discuss taking your cat outside safely today. Who wants to do that before we all get out of here and go stream? Do we want to do that? Did Lady Aoife already leave?
Cat facts. Okay.
Alright. If you don't know, I have a giant book of cats. Someone sent me a giant book of cats because I love cats, and every single week we have a little chunk of a cat fact. Da-damn. Going outside safely. Just because it's safest for your cat to live indoors and not roam free doesn't mean he can never see the light of day except through the window. A leash and a harness, not a collar, is a fairly safe way for both you and your cat to get some fresh air and sunshine. Walking on a leash is an acquired taste that some cats will never acquire, though. Regular experience from kittenhood helps, and some leash-trained cats will even request a walk. Of course, a cat on a leash is still at risk for picking up fleas and for encounters with unleashed cats and dogs in the neighborhood. Building a cat run is actually not as hard as it sounds. Runs must be enclosed on all sides, including the top, and solidly anchored and constructed. Screens should be the heaviest grade of outdoor mesh, and walls should extend a few inches below the ground to prevent cats from digging their way out, or other animals from digging their way in. If the run isn't built attached to your home with a pet door or other door leading indoors, be sure it includes some sort of waterproof shelter where your cat can retreat in the case of inclement weather. It's especially important for a run or other outdoor enclosure to have a roof. Cats are terrific climbers and leapers, and even an 8 to 10 foot wall may not hold them, especially if there are screens to hook into. The roof and walls of the run provide another kind of security. They keep other things out. Openings in the roof or walls let unfriendly or dangerous animals, people, and things into an area that your cat may not be able to escape. Free-roaming cats get into loud, late-night spats with other cats, chew or dig up neighbors' plants, kill local birds, but also may help control the local rodent population and bury their waste in other people's gardens. While some folks and some cat owners see these as minor annoyances, many other folks see them as much more serious problems. If your cat gets into a fight, it may do more than wake the neighbors because of the yowling and screaming. The superficial scratches you may see on his face or back aren't so bad, but he may also have bite wounds that close up quickly, sealing in dirt and germs and creating a painful abscess several days later. Bites during fights also seem to be the main way to spread feline immunodeficiency virus. Unaltered cats that roam free also contribute to pet overpopulation, a problem that fills animal shelters to capacity and beyond, resulting in millions of dogs and cats being put to sleep every year. That wasn't the palate cleanser we needed it to be. If you're doing that indoors, which may not want to do if you rent, there's some ways people have managed to do that when they rent, but by and large, if you got a cat that likes to cause chaos, drilling them directly into the wall when they rent, because that's the only way to safely do it, is to drill them into the wall. If you're gonna have an outdoor, if you're gonna have like an indoor system for your cats to climb, the only way you're really gonna be able to do it is to drill it into the wall to where it won't fall off. And even then, cats can seriously damage walls. So look into, like, get a handle on your cat's personality before you put runs on the walls. I'm not allowed to use sticky hooks. What's with this place? Oh my gosh. BMO too big. Pond also too big. So pond doesn't get any wall shelves. Anyway, we are gonna go stream. So if you don't know, we migrate over to Discord. I play some games for a few hours until I can't see anymore, and then I go to bed. But I'm gonna play a game. I don't know which game I should play. There's so many things that I have not finished doing. But last time I played Death's Door. I'm tempted to play Death's Door again. Play as a happy little crow, and I cause chaos. So it's really fun. But I will see y'all on stream, and we will decide what we're doing. So, and I'll get the YouTube updated as soon as I can with this chapter, so you can refresh yourself before we show up again next week, every Tuesday at 8 Central. Thank you, guys.